Hi there, welcome back to Haunting Vales. They called it the House of 12 Mirrors, a mansion where truth and illusion were one and the same. Each mirror reflected not just a face, but a secret, and one night, amidst the glitter of glass, a scream shattered the silence. When the body is discovered, every reflection points in a different direction. Was it suicide or a carefully staged murder? Hercule Poirot steps into a world of shifting images and fractured truths, where even his own reflection seems to whisper deceit. In this house, nothing is as it seems, and every mirror hides a lie waiting to be unveiled. Stay with us until the final reflection, for only when the last mirror breaks will the truth come to light. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Haunting Vales, where every story reflects the darkness within. Chapter 1: Shadows Behind Glass. The rain had not stopped for 3 days. Thin needles of water slanted through the gray sky, turning the English countryside into a watercolor of fog and reflection. The road that wound through the hills shimmered with puddles, and beyond it rose the black silhouette of a house. It was tall, square, and windowed like a chessboard. Its walls gleamed faintly in the mist. That was Blackwood Hall, though to those who lived nearby, it had another name. They called it the House of 12 Mirrors. Hercule Poirot sat in the back seat of the car, watching the estate appear and vanish through the fog. His hat rested neatly on his knee, his gloved hands folded. His gaze, as ever, was alert, studying not only the landscape, but the driver's reflection in the mirror, the trembling of branches, the small irregularities that others overlooked. The car slowed as the gates loomed into view, tall iron bars, sculpted with ornate curves, now dripping with rain. Beside him, Inspector Arthur Graves glanced toward the detective. Quite the sight, isn't it? Been years since anyone's been invited inside. Some say the mirrors in there show more than they should. Poirot smiled faintly. And yet, my friend, here we are. You think the mirrors will confess to the crime? Graves is nortez. I'd settle for a human confession. The message we received was odd, to say the least. Poirot nodded slowly. 2 days earlier, a letter had arrived at his London flat. It was unsigned, typed on thick cream paper. It read, "Come at once to Blackwood Hall. A life will be lost among the mirrors before the week ends." Nothing else. No address, no signature. Only that warning. Poirot, naturally, had taken interest. The gates creaked open as the car pulled in. Gravel crunched beneath the tires. The fog thinned slightly, revealing the house in full. It was built of dark stone, its tall windows like rows of empty eyes. A fountain stood dry at the center of the courtyard, the figure of an angel at its heart, its wings blackened by time. A man waited on the steps, holding an umbrella. He was thin, pale, and impeccably dressed, though his clothes seemed too large for his body. As Poirot stepped out, the man bowed stiffly. "Mr. Poirot, Inspector, welcome to Blackwood Hall. I am Leonard Blackwood, owner of the house," said Graves under his breath. "Inherited after his father's passing last year." Leonard's smile barely moved. "You must forgive the gloom. The house tends to absorb the weather." Poirot glanced toward the high windows. Raindrops trailed down the glass like tears. "And perhaps," he murmured, "the sorrow of those who once lived here." Inside, the hall was vast and dim. A fire burned low in the grate, but the air was cold, carrying the faint smell of polish and dust. On every wall hung mirrors, large, small, oval, square, framed in gold, wood, or iron. There were indeed 12 of them, reflecting the firelight, multiplying it until the room seemed filled with pale, shifting flames. Leonard gestured toward the hearth. "Please, make yourselves comfortable. I'm afraid I didn't expect company, but the letter you received..." I assure you, I didn't send it. Poirot raised a brow. Yet it bore your address. Leonard hesitated. Yes, but I have not written a single letter since my father's death. The typewriter in this house has been locked in his old study since the funeral. Perhaps someone wished to bring us here. Then, said Poirot quietly, the question is who and why. A door opened on the upper landing. A woman's voice drifted down. Leonard, who are these men? She descended slowly. A woman in her 30s, elegant, with a silver brooch pinned at her collar. Her eyes, dark and careful, moved between the visitors. My sister, Clara, Leonard said. These gentlemen are investigators of a kind. It seems we are to expect a tragedy. Clara's face paled. Another? Poirot noticed the tremor in her hand. Madam, he said gently. Another? You mean there's been death already? She gave a brittle smile. You might say that, Mr. Poirot. This house has never truly recovered from the first. Leonard's tone sharpened. Clara. But she continued, her gaze fixed on one of the mirrors, a tall, narrow one that stood beside the staircase. It was a year ago. Our father died here, alone in his study. They said it was his heart, but I've never believed it. Since then, every mirror in this house has shown something different. Poirot studied her reflection in the mirror. Her face was pale, drawn, but behind her reflection, for just an instant, the firelight seemed to bend, as though a shadow moved that was not hers. Dinner was served in a long dining room. The table set for 6, though only 4 sat down. Leonard, Clara, Poirot, and Inspector Graves. Rain pattered steadily against the windows, and the flickering candles threw restless reflections across the mirrors that lined the walls. The mirrors again, 12 of them, one in each major room, each identical in size and frame. I had them restored last winter, Leonard said, as if explaining their presence. They were designed by my father. He believed they would bring light into the house. But sometimes I think they bring only repetition. Poirot's fork paused midway. Repetition, monsieur, is often a sign that one seeks to forget rather than remember. Leonard gave a small, humorless laugh. My father remembered too much. He built this place around memory and secrets. Clara placed her glass down with a sharp sound. Enough, Leonard. But Poirot noticed her reflection again. In the glass opposite her seat, she was not looking at her brother. She was looking directly at Poirot, her expression almost pleading. Later that evening, Poirot and Graves were shown to their rooms. The detective's quarters were on the upper floor, overlooking the courtyard. His bed was simple but well kept, and, of course, a mirror hung opposite it. Poirot examined it closely. The frame was carved with strange patterns, looping vines, faces almost hidden within them. He tapped the glass lightly. Solid, clean, but something about the reflection unsettled him. He turned toward the door. For a moment, the reflection lagged behind, as if delayed by a heartbeat. Poirot frowned. He moved again, testing, step forward, step back. Always the same. A faint hesitation, impossible but unmistakable. He smiled thinly. A trick of the light, perhaps, or something more deliberate. A knock came at the door. Mr. Poirot? It was Clara. She stood in the hallway, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders. I'm sorry to disturb you, but you should see this. He followed her down the corridor to her father's study. The door creaked as she pushed it open. The room smelled faintly of old paper and smoke. A single lamp burned on the desk, throwing golden light over a typewriter, a heavy black machine, dusted but unused. I told you, Clara whispered. It's been locked since he died. I only opened it tonight, after you arrived, and when I did, I found this. She handed him a folded sheet of paper. Poirot unfolded it. The same cream paper, the same words. A life will be lost among the mirrors before the week ends. Poirot's brow furrowed. You are certain, Miss Blackwood, that no one could have written this before today? Clara nodded. The study key has been with me since the funeral. I never touched the typewriter until this evening. Then, said Poirot softly, someone has found another way to write without writing. Inspector Grave stepped closer. What do you mean? Poirot placed the note on the desk. A letter that predicts death. A house full of mirrors. And a family haunted by the past. My dear Graves, do you not see? The reflection of an old crime is about to repeat itself. A thunderclap rolled through the night. The lamp flickered. For a split second, the mirrors along the study wall seemed to shimmer, and in one of them, Poirot thought he saw movement. A figure standing where no one stood, watching. Then the light steadied, and the reflection was gone. The next morning, the house awoke to chaos. A scream echoed from the east wing, high, sharp, and full of horror. Poirot and Graves rushed toward the sound, followed by Leonard, pale and breathless. In the music room, Clara stood frozen beside the grand piano. Her hands covered her mouth. On the floor lay the butler, Mr. Reeves, an old man, loyal to the family for decades. His head rested at an unnatural angle, eyes wide open. But what chilled everyone wasn't the body itself. It was the mirror behind it. A tall, rectangular glass, cracked down the center, as though something from inside had tried to break out. Poirot knelt beside the body, his expression grave. No weapon, he murmured. No struggle. The expression, surprise, perhaps fear. Graves examined the glass. Maybe he fell, tried to catch himself, broke the mirror. Poirot shook his head. No, look closely. The break begins at the center, not the edge. The glass shattered outward, not inward. Leonard swallowed. You're saying the mirror broke itself? Poirot rose slowly, his eyes scanning the cracked reflection. I am saying, monsieur, that in this house, nothing reflects the truth as it should. That night, Poirot sat alone in the drawing room. The fire had burned low, and the mirrors around him glowed with faint amber light. He closed his eyes, thinking about the letter, the butler's death, the 12 mirrors, and the delay in his reflection. There was a pattern. There always was. He stood, turning in a slow circle. 12 mirrors, 12 rooms. One family secret. A voice broke the silence. You won't find the answer by staring at glass, Mr. Poirot. It was Clara. She stepped into the room, the shadows moving across her face. Perhaps not, Poirot said, but I will find the answer by watching those who watch themselves. Clara hesitated. You think one of us. I think, Poirot interrupted gently, that someone here believes the truth can be hidden by reflection, that if you break enough glass, you can destroy what it shows. She lowered her gaze. Then they'll try again. Poirot nodded. Yes, and before this week ends, they will kill once more, unless I find which mirror hides the past. The fire crackled softly. Outside, the rain had stopped, but mist still curled against the windows, pale and restless. In a glass behind Clara, Poirot saw his own reflection again. But this time, something was different. Behind him, in the reflection only, a shadow moved across the door. He turned sharply. Nothing. Yet in the mirror, the shadow lingered, watching. Chapter 2. The Mirror That Lied. The morning after the butler's death began in silence. Not the calm kind, but the heavy, unnatural sort that settles after tragedy, when even the walls seem to hold their breath. Rain had ceased, yet the sky remained iron gray. The air inside Blackwood Hall was still and cold, like a room waiting for judgment. Poirot stood near the cracked mirror in the music room, hands behind his back. He had been there since dawn, unmoving, his eyes tracing every line of the fracture. Inspector Graves paced nearby. I've spoken to everyone, he said finally. None of them heard a thing last night. No screams, no footsteps. Reeves was found dead around 5 in the morning. Clara discovered him when she came to draw the curtains. Poirot nodded absently. No signs of forced entry, I presume? None. In the mirror, Graves rubbed his chin. You're right, it did crack outward. But I still can't see how. Poirot turned, his expression calm but thoughtful. Because the cause, my friend, may not be physical. Sometimes what shatters a thing is not touch, but truth. Graves fronith. Meaning, Poirot looked again at the reflection. His own image stared back, broken by the line that cut through it. Meaning, perhaps, that the mirror did not reflect what someone wished to see. Later that morning, the family gathered in the drawing room. The atmosphere was taut, like strings pulled too tight. Leonard sat by the fire, staring into it as though the flames might speak. Clara stood near the window, her shawl drawn close. A third figure joined them, Dr. Oliver Hartley, the family physician, who had arrived after receiving word of the death. He was middle-aged, intelligent-looking, with kind but weary eyes. Poor Reeves, he said quietly. A faithful servant. I examined him just now. No wounds, no signs of poison. Heart failure, perhaps, but he hesitated. There's something strange about his expression. Shall? Fear. Poirot watched him closely. Doctor, you have known the Blackwoods for many years. Since Leonard and Clara were children, Hartley replied. I tended their father as well. A brilliant man, but secretive, obsessive about his work. What kind of work? Optical design, said Hartley. He studied light, reflection, illusion. He built these mirrors himself, each one unique. Said he was trying to capture truth in glass. Poirot's gaze drifted to the walls, where 12 mirrors hung like silent witnesses. Capture truth, he repeated softly, and yet the truth seems to have slipped through his fingers. Clara spoke suddenly. My father believed mirrors could reveal what the eye refused to see. He said every reflection hides a second image, the truth beneath the surface. After his death, strange things began to happen. Reflections out of sync, shadows that moved when no one did. Leonard gave a tight, dismissive laugh. Superstition. This house breeds paranoia. Our father's mind was failing, Clara. Don't let his madness infect you. Her eyes flashed. You saw it too, Leonard. Don't pretend you didn't. Enough, he snapped. We have a dead man under our roof, and you speak of ghosts. Poirot raised a hand gently. Please. Emotion clouds the mind. Let us instead ask, who benefits from Reeves's death? Leonard frowned. Benefits? He was a servant, an old one. Indeed, Poirot said. Yet servants often know more than they should. He turned toward Clara. Did Reeves serve your father as well? Yes, she said softly. He was the only one father trusted. He even knew the code to father's study safe. Poirot's eyes narrowed. A safe. And what did it contain? Blueprints. Notes. Designs for the mirrors. Interesting, murmured Poirot. And where are these designs now? Leonard shifted uneasily. I destroyed them. After father's death, his work was unhealthy. Poirot studied him for a long moment. Destroyed. Yet perhaps someone wished to ensure that was true. That afternoon, Poirot explored the east wing of the house, the oldest part, heavy with shadow. The corridors twisted, each intersection marked by another mirror. He moved slowly, pausing at each one, observing. At first glance, all the reflections appeared normal. But the detective noticed subtle differences. In one mirror, the light seemed too bright. In another, his reflection stood slightly closer than it should. He stopped before a tall mirror framed in black oak. It reflected the hallway behind him, stretching empty into gloom. But when he tilted his head, the reflection lagged again, the same hesitation as before. Poirot's voice was quiet. You are no ordinary mirror, are you? He knelt, examining the edges. The frame had small screws, modern additions. Someone had tampered with it. Curious, he murmured. Why modify a mirror unless it hides something behind? He pressed gently on the corner. The panel shifted, a hidden hinge. Behind it, a narrow compartment. Inside lay a stack of papers, brown with age. Poirot drew them out. Designs, notes, diagrams of light paths, glass thickness, and handwritten remarks. The 12th mirror completes the circle. The truth appears when all are aligned. He turned another page and stopped. A final note, dated just days before the elder Blackwood's death. If the reflection lies, destroy the source. The 12th must never be used. Poirot's lips pressed together. So, there was a 13th truth hidden among 12. He replaced the documents and closed the panel. As he straightened, a faint sound echoed behind him, a soft, deliberate footstep. He turned. The hallway was empty, but in the mirror's reflection, a figure stood at the far end, a silhouette watching him. Poirot's breath stilled. He turned sharply again, no one. When he looked back at the mirror, the figure was gone. That evening, the storm returned. Wind rattled the windows. The air smelled of iron and rain. Poirot and Graves dined quietly in the study, reviewing their notes. Graves spoke first. So, Reeves knew about the mirrors, maybe about the father's experiments. Someone kills him to keep it secret. But why now? A whole year after the old man's death. Poirot sipped his tea, because perhaps the secret was not buried as deep as someone believed. The letter was sent to summon me, not by the killer, but by the victim. Graves frowned. You think Reeves sent it? Possibly. He knew danger was near. The letter was typed on the same machine found in the study. Clara swore she never used it, yet Reeves might have. He had the key to the room, after all. Graves leaned back. So he warned us. But who killed him? Poirot glanced toward the fire. The one who fears what the mirrors reveal. Reeves must have learned which mirror contains the final truth, the one the father called the 12th. For that, he died. Graves rubbed his temples. So where is it? Which one's the 12th? Poirot's gaze moved slowly toward the far wall, where a large, shrouded shape leaned against the paneling, covered by a cloth. I think, he said softly, we shall find it soon enough. Later that night, Poirot walked the halls alone. The lamps flickered in their glass shades, and the mirrors shimmered faintly in the dim light. He stopped outside Clara's room. From inside came muffled sobs. He hesitated, then knocked gently. The door opened slightly. Clara stood there, eyes red. Mr. Poirot, she whispered. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see Reeves. And my father. Poirot's voice was kind. You cared for them both. Yes. Father was difficult, but he wasn't cruel. He believed he could build something that revealed truth, not lies, not illusions. He said the mirrors would set him free. Free from what? She hesitated. From guilt. Poirot's brow furrowed. What guilt? Clara glanced toward the corridor, then lowered her voice. Years ago, before Father built this house, there was an accident. A man was found dead on our old estate. Father was never charged, but he carried the weight of it ever since. He said the mirrors would prove his innocence, that they would show what truly happened that night. Her voice trembled. After he finished them, he locked himself in the study for days. When he finally came out, he looked terrified. He smashed one of the mirrors, the 12th one. The next morning, he was dead. Poirot nodded slowly. So the past, like the reflection, returns. Thank you, Miss Blackwood. You have helped me greatly. As he turned to leave, he noticed the faint gleam of light beneath her doorframe. The reflection from a mirror opposite her bed flickered, and within it, for the briefest moment, Poirot thought he saw the shadow of a man, standing behind her. He said nothing, only bowed his head slightly and walked away. The next day dawned bright, almost unnaturally so. Sunlight streamed through the windows, scattering across the polished floors. The mirrors glowed with it, each one alive with reflections. Leonard appeared calmer, though his eyes darted frequently toward the walls. Clara remained quiet. Dr. Hartley stayed longer than intended, insisting on examining everyone for shock. Poirot watched all of them, silent and still. By midday, Graves approached him. "We're running in circles, Poirot. There's no weapon, no motive we can prove, and half this family's half-mad." Poirot smiled faintly. "Circles, yes. And what happens when one completes the circle?" Graves said, "I don't know. You tell me." "You end where you began," Poirot said softly. "And there, my friend, lies the truth." That evening, Poirot gathered everyone in the grand hall. The fire burned bright. The storm had faded. The 12 mirrors gleamed around them, like a jury of glass. "Mr. Blackwood," he began calmly, "when your father died, you destroyed his papers, yes?" Leonard nodded. "Yes. I told you. They were dangerous. And yet some survived, hidden behind a mirror in the east wing." Leonard stiffened. "That's impossible." Poirot stepped closer. "Is it? Or did you hope no one would ever find them? Because among those papers is your father's final note, a warning about the 12th mirror." Clara gasped softly. "The one he smashed?" "Yes," said Poirot. "The same. But you see, it was never destroyed. It was replaced." Leonard's face drained of color. "Replaced?" Poirot turned toward the shrouded mirror against the wall. "By you, monsieur. The 12th mirror stands there. You covered it because it betrayed you." Leonard's voice cracked. "You have no proof." Poirot's tone was cool and steady. "I have your fear, and that, often, is proof enough." He reached for the cloth and pulled it away. The mirror gleamed, flawless, cold, and deep. For a moment, all was silent. Then Leonard whispered, "Don't look into it." Clara's voice shook. "Why?" "Because," Leonard said, trembling, "it doesn't show you. It shows what you've done." Poirot's eyes met his. "And what did it show you, Mr. Blackwood?" Leonard said nothing, only stared into the glass. And for an instant, his reflection seemed to twist. The face looking back was not calm, not proud, but terrified. Behind it, faintly, another shape appeared, the outline of the old man, the father he'd buried. Poirot stepped forward. "The mirror does not lie, monsieur. Your father knew you killed that man years ago, and you killed him too when he tried to expose it. Reeves discovered the truth in those designs. You silenced him, just as you silence your conscience." Leonard's breathing quickened. "No, I didn't mean." His reflection in the mirror seemed to reach toward him. He stumbled back, eyes wide with horror. Clara cried out, running to him. "Leonard!" He turned to her, and in that moment, the mirror behind him cracked. A sharp sound like a gunshot. Glass splintered across the floor. Leonard collapsed, hands over his face, blood trickling between his fingers. Poirot and Graves rushed forward, but it was too late. The shards of the 12th mirror lay scattered around him, and his reflection stared upward from 1,000 broken pieces. Poirot stood long after the others had gone, watching the firelight flicker across the shattered glass. Graves came to his side. "It's over, then?" Poirot shook his head slowly. "No, my friend, not over. Only complete." He turned toward the mirrors that still stood. 11 now, their reflections calm, empty. "The 12th was never meant to exist," Poirot said softly. "It was the mirror that lied, because it showed not the truth, but the guilt within the heart of the man who looked into it." He walked to the door. "Sometimes, Graves, the greatest punishment is not what one sees, but what one cannot unsee." As they stepped out into the night, the rain began once more, soft, cleansing, endless. And behind them, in the house of 12 mirrors, the last reflection flickered and went dark. Chapter 3: Echoes in the Glass. The rain had turned to mist again, the kind that clung to the windows like breath. By morning, Blackwood Hall stood quiet, sealed in gray light. The police had come and gone. Leonard's body had been taken away. Only the mirrors remained. 11 of them now. 11 silent witnesses. Poirot stood before the shattered 12th mirror. The floor around it sparkled with fragments, tiny pieces of reflected light. He crouched down, examining them one by one. Each shard caught the glow of the fireplace differently, some sharp, others dull. Inspector Graves entered quietly behind him. The coroner's report is straightforward. The mirror broke, the glass cut his throat. Accidental, they say. Poirot did not look up. Accidental, yes. Convenient, also. Graves crossed his arms. You think someone helped it along? I think, said Poirot softly, that guilt sometimes requires a gentle push from fate. He lifted one shard carefully with his gloved fingers. Notice this edge. It is clean, but not from a fall. Someone tampered with the frame earlier, weakened it, so that when the moment came, it would shatter at a touch. Graves frowned. So, not suicide. Murder again. Poirot placed the shard down. Murder, or poetic justice, the two can look very much alike. He straightened, brushing dust from his sleeves. And yet, there remains one thing I do not understand. What's that? The letter, said Poirot. If Reeves sent it, he foresaw his own death. If Leonard did, he set a trap. But what if neither wrote it? Graves blinked. Then who did? Poirot's gaze drifted toward the hall, where the remaining mirrors glimmered faintly in the morning light. Perhaps, Inspector, the message was not written by hand at all. Later that day, Clara sat in the library, her face pale but calm. A teacup rested untouched beside her. The air in the room was thick with dust and grief. Poirot entered quietly. Miss Blackwood. She looked up. You come to tell me it's over. He paused. I have come to tell you that nothing is ever truly over. It only changes shape. She gave a hollow smile. Leonard wasn't evil, Mr. Poirot. He was frightened. Father's death haunted him. He thought destroying the mirrors would make it stop. Poirot nodded. Fear can turn men into prisoners of their own reflection. She hesitated. Will they close the house? Perhaps, he said. But before they do, there is something I must see. Your father's study, once more. She rose slowly. I can't go back in there. Then allow me, Poirot said gently. Sometimes the truth is easier to face through another's eyes. The study smelled of dust, metal, and memory. The lamp still sat on the desk, casting a weak circle of light. The typewriter stood silent. Poirot approached it, fingers tracing its keys. Then he noticed something new. A single sheet of paper had been rolled into the machine. The letters, faint and uneven, formed a single sentence. The house remembers. Poirot's brow furrowed. How curious, he whispered. Graves entered behind him. What's that? Poirot pointed to the page. A message, but not typed by human hands, I think. Graves froneth. You mean? Poirot smiled faintly. Machines are not haunted, my friend. But people are. Someone placed this paper here during the night. Someone who still lives within these walls. Graves glanced around the dim room. Then we're not done yet. No, said Poirot softly. The house still has something to say. That evening, Poirot walked the halls again. The lamps flickered low, and the air hummed faintly with rain outside. Each mirror he passed seemed alive, as though watching. He stopped before one in the corridor, a wide oval mirror opposite a painting of the late Mr. Blackwood. In the glass, his reflection was perfect, but the reflection of the painting behind him was wrong. Poirot stepped closer. In the mirror, the painted man's eyes were turned not forward, but to the side, toward Poirot himself. He whispered, so you too are trying to speak. He examined the frame closely. A small latch hid beneath the gilded edge. When he pressed it, the mirror swung open like a door, revealing a small hidden chamber. Inside, a metal box. Poirot lifted it out carefully and set it on the table. The lock was simple, a slide bolt. Inside, a stack of old photographs, letters, and one small audio reel labeled Confession. He held it up. Now we begin to see. They gathered later in the drawing room. Poirot, Graves, Clara, and Dr. Hartley. The storm had passed, leaving the house eerily still. Poirot placed the reel on a small player found in the study. This was hidden behind the third mirror. It bears your father's handwriting, Miss Blackwood. Clara clasped her hands. He left a recording? Perhaps a confession, said Poirot. Let us listen. He turned the switch. The tape crackled, hissed, then a man's voice filled the room. Steady, tired, old. If you're hearing this, it means the mirrors have failed me. I built them to reveal truth, but truth is not kind. It reflects what we refuse to face. My son's guilt, my own weakness. I thought I could change what happened that night, long ago, the night Henry Dole was killed. But mirrors cannot change the past. They can only repeat it. The 12th mirror was my last attempt. It did not show truth. It showed guilt. It showed Leonard's face as it was, not as he wished it to be. I fear what the mirrors have learned. I fear they now see more than I ever intended. The tape clicked off. Silence followed, heavy as stone. Dr. Hartley exhaled slowly. Henry Dole. I remember that name. The groundskeeper at their old estate. He died after a quarrel with Leonard's father. Everyone thought it was an accident. Clara whispered. Leonard pushed him. Father took the blame to protect him. Poirot nodded. And built these mirrors in penance, to prove that truth can never be buried. Graves rubbed his jaw. Then why the message? Why did someone type "The house remembers"? Poirot looked around the room. Because, my friend, it does. Every mirror in this house holds a piece of memory. The question is, whose memory remains unfinished? His eyes moved to Clara. She was trembling. Miss Blackwood, he said softly, you told me you saw shadows in the glass, things that should not be there. What did you truly see? Her voice was faint. Sometimes I saw Father, sometimes Leonard. But last night I saw something else. What? Myself, she whispered, standing behind me, smiling. Poirot's gaze sharpened. The final echo. Hours passed. Poirot remained awake, pacing the hallways, thinking. He began to understand. Each mirror had been designed to capture more than light. They recorded what stood before them, not in images but in essence. A reflection that remembers. When Leonard killed his father, when Reeves discovered the truth, when Clara lived with the lie, the mirrors had witnessed it all, and one by one, they were showing those moments again. But there was still one reflection unaccounted for. He stopped before the last mirror at the end of the main corridor, tall, slender, framed in dark wood. It was the only one untouched since the investigation began. He looked into it. His own reflection stared back, calm and untroubled. But in the faint depth of the glass, he saw another figure, a woman's outline, faint and ghostly, standing beside him. He turned. No one was there. When he looked back, the figure in the mirror had turned its head, facing him directly. Poirot whispered, Miss Blackwood. He hurried to the library. Clara sat by the window, her face pale in the moonlight. Miss Blackwood, he said firmly, you must tell me the truth. Did you touch the 12th mirror before your brother's death? She looked up slowly. Yes. Why? Because I hated it, she said. It showed me something I couldn't bear to see. My reflection looked at me and whispered, you did it. Poirot's voice softened. And did you? She closed her eyes. When Father died, Leonard wasn't alone. I was there. We argued, all three of us. Father said he would go to the police, confess everything. Leonard begged him not to. I tried to take the gun from him. It went off. Her hands trembled. Father fell. Leonard told me to run. He said he'd make it look like suicide. I let him. Poirot nodded slowly. So the guilt was shared. The mirrors reflected not one crime, but two. Tears slipped down her face. I didn't mean to kill him, Mr. Poirot. I thought the mirrors would forgive me. He shook his head gently. The mirrors forgive no one. They only reveal what is hidden. But confession, Miss Blackwood, that is what cleanses the soul. She bowed her head, weeping. Poirot looked toward the hall. The last mirror shimmered faintly, as if listening. An hour later, the detective stood alone once more in the grand hall. The rain had stopped. Moonlight poured through the tall windows. The remaining mirrors caught the silver light and multiplied it, filling the room with a strange glow. Poirot spoke softly, as if addressing the house itself. "You have seen everything. You have kept their secrets. But now the truth has spoken. You may rest." The fire flickered. The air shifted almost like a sigh. And for a single, brief moment, the reflections changed. Where Poirot should have seen his own face, he saw instead a man and a woman, the elder Blackwood and his daughter, standing together in peace. Then the image faded, replaced once more by still glass. Graves entered behind him, carrying his hat. "It's done, then?" "Yes," said Poirot quietly. "The house has told its story." Graves looked around. "You really believe all that? That mirrors can remember?" Poirot smiled faintly. "No, my friend, but I believe people can. And sometimes they build their memories into walls and glass because they cannot bear to carry them alone." He picked up his coat. "Cool me. The case is closed, but there is one more thing I must do before we leave." Before dawn, Poirot stepped outside. The sky was pale silver, the first light of morning touching the wet stones of the courtyard. He turned back toward Blackwood Hall, its windows gleaming faintly, like 1,000 watchful eyes. "The house remembers," he murmured, "and now so shall we." He tipped his hat slightly to the silent mansion, then walked toward the car waiting beyond the gates. Behind him, inside the house, the mirrors reflected the dawn. 11 mirrors, no longer haunted, only still. But in the smallest fragment of the 12th, one last reflection lingered. Poirot's silhouette, calm and distant, fading slowly into light. Chapter 4. The Final Reflection. The morning after the confession, silence returned to Blackwood Hall, heavy, unbroken, and almost holy. The storm had washed the grounds clean, leaving the trees wet and glistening. Inside, the house seemed smaller somehow, stripped of its illusions. Poirot stood by the entrance hall, gloved hands clasped behind his back. The 11 mirrors lined the walls like silent sentinels, their surfaces gray with dawn light. Inspector Graves joined him, his face tired but relieved. "The constables took Miss Blackwood away just now," he said. "She went quietly." Poirot nodded slowly. "Guilt, once spoken, becomes a kind of peace." Graves sighed. "Strange case, this one. A family cursed by their own reflections." Poirot smiled faintly. "Not cursed, my friend, only confronted. The mirrors were not monsters. They were witnesses." He turned toward the staircase. "But before we leave, there remains one final question." Graves frowned. "Haven't we answered enough?" Poirot's voice was low. "We have answered who, yes, but not why the house still breathes." They climbed the stairs slowly. The corridor stretched ahead like a tunnel of dim glass. Each mirror reflected their passing. 2 men, doubled again and again, infinite and unending. Halfway down, Poirot stopped before the smallest mirror. Its frame was plain oak, unadorned, and its surface slightly clouded. "This one," he murmured, "was never mentioned in the inventory." Graves looked puzzled. "Then it must have been added later." "Indeed," Poirot said. "But by whom?" He ran his fingers along the edge and found no latch, no seam. Then he noticed something beneath it, a faint inscription carved into the wood. The letters were worn but legible. "For the one who watches." Poirot's brows drew together. How curious. He leaned closer to the glass. At first, it showed only his reflection. Then, slowly, another appeared behind him. Graves. But the reflection of Graves in the mirror wasn't moving. It stood perfectly still, eyes locked forward, even as the real man shifted beside Poirot. Poirot stepped back. "Ah, so you're the one who watches." Graves swallowed hard. You think it's what haunted? Poirot's voice was calm. Haunted, no, but it remembers. He pressed a hand to the mirror. It was cold, colder than any glass should be. This is the first mirror that Blackwood ever built, he said softly. Before the 12. The seed of them all. Graves blinked. How do you know? Poirot smiled faintly. Because this one does not show truth or guilt. It shows the watcher himself. Hours later, the detective packed his case in the drawing room. The sun had risen, sending pale beams through the dust-filled air. Dr. Hartley entered quietly. You're leaving us then? Yes, Poirot said, closing the clasp. The case is concluded. Hartley hesitated. Strange thing, memory. The human mind forgets to survive, but the heart remembers everything. Poirot looked up. And what of a house that remembers, Doctor? Hartley smiled sadly. Then it must be forgiven, too. He left soon after, his footsteps echoing through the hall. Poirot lingered a moment longer, gazing at the mirrors. They stood like the pages of a closed book, each one holding its chapter of truth. And yet, something pulled at him, a faint instinct, a whisper. He turned toward the 12th mirror, the one that had shattered. The fragments still lay on the floor, though they had dulled since the night of Leonard's death. Poirot knelt beside them. One piece caught his eye, a shard no larger than a coin, reflecting his face in miniature. He lifted it gently. In that tiny reflection, his eyes appeared not gray, but gold, glowing faintly as if the glass still lived. He frowned. You are not finished, are you? By afternoon, the police had gone. The house stood empty once more. Poirot walked alone through the upper corridors, his footsteps echoing against the walls. Every creak, every sigh of wood seemed to follow him. He reached the main landing and paused before a large mirror opposite the balcony. In it, his reflection was clear and calm, but something behind it shimmered faintly, like water rippling under glass. Poirot whispered, "Show me." For a brief, impossible instant, the reflection changed. He was no longer standing in the hall. He was in the study. Years ago, the elder Blackwood sat at his desk, speaking to a young Leonard. One day, the father said, "The truth will find its way through every reflection, even ours. Then I'll break them all," Leonard said. "You cannot break what's inside you," the father replied. The image flickered, then vanished. Poirot's own reflection returned, calm and still. He exhaled slowly. So that is it, then. The mirrors had been more than inventions. They were a confession machine, a network of reflections connected not by wires or lenses, but by memory itself. Every person who stood before them had left a trace, a thought, a fragment of soul. That was why the house remembered. And now, that memory was complete. Night fell quietly over Blackwood Hall. Poirot sat alone in the library, the fire dying low. He had written his final notes, signed his report, and sealed the envelope. But he did not leave. He watched the last embers fade, thinking of Clara, Leonard, and the father, 3 lives bound by truth and guilt, and of himself, a man who had chased truth his entire life. He whispered to the empty room, "Perhaps mercy is the only truth worth finding." A faint sound drew his attention, the soft crack of wood behind him. He turned. In a mirror above the fireplace, something stirred. At first, it was only his reflection. Then, behind it, faint and pale, appeared another figure, the elder Blackwood. The ghostly image smiled faintly, nodding once, then faded into darkness. Poirot did not move for a long moment. Then he rose, picked up his hat, and bowed slightly toward the mirror. "Rest now," he said quietly. "You have kept your promise." He turned and walked out. The next morning, a caretaker entered the hall to lock up the house. The air was cold, still heavy with dust. As he moved through the main corridor, he noticed something strange. The mirrors, all 11 of them, were spotless. The glass gleamed like new, though no one had cleaned them. And in the place where the 12th mirror had shattered, the fragments were gone. Only a single line remained on the wall, carved deep into the wood. The house remembers. The caretaker stared for a moment, then turned away quickly, locking the doors behind him. 2 weeks later, in London, Poirot sat in his flat, sipping tea. The newspaper on his table carried a small headline: Blackwood estate to be demolished next month. He folded the paper carefully and looked toward his own reflection in the window. Outside, the city moved, alive, noisy bright. For a moment, he thought he saw another reflection beside him, the faint outline of Leonard Blackwood. But when he blinked, it was gone. Poirot smiled slightly. "Goodbye, old friend." He leaned back, letting the sunlight fall across the room. Somewhere far away, in the ruins of Blackwood Hall, the mirrors stood silent, buried under dust and time. But deep beneath the earth, in the dark cellar where the first mirror had once been built, a single shard of glass remained. And when the moonlight touched it, for just an instant, it shone. Epilogue: the reflection lives on. That night, Poirot wrote a single line in his case journal. Truth, once seen, cannot be forgotten. It looks back at us through every reflection we dare to face. He closed the book, his pen resting beside it. Outside, the city lights flickered across the Thames, countless tiny mirrors of their own. Poirot whispered, "Perhaps every man builds his own house of mirrors, and someday must walk through it alone." The clock struck midnight. The case of the House of 12 Mirrors was over. If you enjoyed this mystery, the twists, the haunting secrets, the way truth hides in every reflection, then you're the kind of mind Hercule Poirot would trust. Don't let this story fade into silence. Subscribe now for the next case, another world of clues, lies, and the quiet heartbeat of truth. And tell us in the comments, what do you think the mirrors really showed? Until the next mystery, keep your eyes open. The reflection might still be watching.